Josh, welcome to season 2 of the Colorado Food Magazine. It's kind of early, so I can't talk yet. But thank you for coming on board. Today we're interviewing Josh Mayo of Spark 3 Hospitality. We're going to talk a lot about, obviously, restaurants and bars. We're going to talk about your story, what got you started, and just kind of how you foresee working with us, because you've been a huge proponent of the HRA and what we do. In addition to that, you've really helped develop our leadership model and talk about that. And once again, we want to shape the industry for the good, because obviously there's been a lot of things going on. So tell us about, where you grew up, kind of your story, all the way moving forward to where we are today.
Okay. I was born and raised in Boston, and I guess I'll just start with what made me created the passion behind my passion for the industry, or what started it. Was there was a lot of cooking in my family, on both sides of my family, grandparents on both sides of my family, and I just loved cooking and loved food at an early age. I actually think that one of the first sets of words that I had were, other than mama and dada and things like that, were bagel and butter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was going in the fridge, and it was about, I think I used to eat the butter right off the stick. So
oh, I do that now.
It's all about food.
My son is always saying, do you need a little bit of bread with your butter? Because I love butter.
Yeah. So who doesn't? Who doesn't?
Exactly.
So.
Well, it seems to, and I always say this, obviously food is huge in the Hispanic culture, and actually I should say that every culture.
Yeah.
Because it seems to form everybody's relationships, and all 7 billion people on the planet, we have one thing in common.
Yeah, we eat food. Yeah. We eat food.
And there's so many different flavors and just kind of food cultures.
Yeah.
And we see Denver as a great literal melting pot of these different cultures and fusions and stuff like that. So what was, I always think about mom and myself, my parents, and the cooking and stuff like that. What were some of your best memories about food?
Being in Buffalo, New York with my grandmother, my dad's mom, learning how to make spaghetti and meatballs. I mean, watching her. I don't know if I really retained although the recipe that I have for spaghetti and meatballs today is formed from what I remember learning from her on how to make that marinara sauce and
different
meatballs. The one thing, and everyone makes meatballs differently, but the one thing I learned that I remember that she did is she always cooked the meatballs and the sauce separately, and then combined them later on. And some people will do it, different ways. They'll stew the meatballs in the sauce for a long time.
Yeah, that's the way I do it.
She always did them separately and then served them separately. I've sort of combined that. I cooked them separately and then combined them at the end. But that was one of my, I think that was one of my favorite memories. Yeah.
Did you were you born in Boston?
Born outside of Boston, in the suburbs, and and then lived there until I was in college, and then I went to Michigan State University.
Oh yeah, the other MSU.
The other MSU, or the MSU, or
the MSU.
Somebody might not.
We're in
like
a new
that.
building. We can't say that. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just kidding. They've been great. Once again, we're holding this podcast at MSU Denver.
Yep.
And so that's great. So that brought you into the hospitality. And we're going to lead into where we want to go in this conversation about leadership and how all that was formed and developed and things like that. So what made you go into hospitality besides your parents? I mean, what was there an epiphany you had?
It was the cooking and the food, and I think as a kid I was definitely rare. It was rare for me to know what I wanted to do for a living when I was in middle school and high school. Most kids don't go to college knowing what they want to do. They try different things and then figure it out from there. I knew because of my love for cooking, and I think my love for serving people and making them happy and creating things and watching them eat it and taste it and seeing the look on their face and the whole communal thing of being with family and friends and enjoying good food. I think that whole culture of enjoying that relationship building across the table with food and drink, and it was a lot of that.
One of our goals is to shape the food and beverage industry through leadership and things like that. And I read a book recently, or listened to a book, to be more correct, called Eaters Eat Last.
Yeah.
Which I love. We did that in the military. That was what you had to do. You had to make sure everybody served, which is.
And those of us in the restaurant industry, we eat last over a trash can in the kitchen, standing.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of guys like hiding underneath.
Whenever we get a chance. But that's a good.
That's a great thing. Well, so let's talk about leadership. That's one of our, we have a
Yeah.
lot of talks.
Yeah.
We could go for days.
Yeah.
Help me define good leadership from your perspective.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think leadership is a differentiator in hospitality and in restaurants. I think, I've been in the restaurant industry for almost 35 years, and it's definitely has a stigma, and it has a reputation for being a certain kind of business, being difficult, being a tough environment to work in. But I think good leadership starts with respect for the team and respect for the job that they do and what they bring to the ultimate success of that business. If a good leader doesn't respect their team and doesn't respect what they bring to the table, I think it's going to be tough to go from there. So I think it starts.
So how do you develop a leader in the culinary industry, especially in today's environment? Because obviously we had this huge environment of the pandemic, where the economic environment was very devastating to the industry.
Yeah.
Not only people, they had their whole livelihood cut out from underneath them.
Yeah.
And so now they're having trouble attracting people back.
Right.
And from my perspective, one of the key components of that is good leadership and developing a good culture.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the things that will bring people back to the industry. It's more than just culinary and cooking and working so physically and mentally hard. It's about creating a culture. It's about creating leaderships, and it's about creating opportunities to move up and grow in an industry that maybe otherwise people thought that they couldn't do that. They were going to be stuck in one role as a server or as a line cook or as a bartender, and they didn't have the opportunity to grow into a management position or a leadership position. So I think helping people understand that it is about leadership and culture, and it starts with that, and then giving them the opportunity to grow and learn from there. I think it's an attraction.
You said that it's a differentiator.
Yeah.
In what sense?
So I don't think every restaurant has great leadership. I don't think every hospitality business has great leadership, and I definitely don't think they all have great culture. And I think that's a differentiator. For me, that's a differentiator between a great restaurant or hospitality business and an average one. Is one that doesn't have great culture, one that doesn't have great leadership is probably going to be here. And then one that has a great culture and drives leadership is going to be here, and they're going to see more success.
Do you think leadership affects their bottom line?
Absolutely.
How?
I think that with great leadership, you inspire and motivate and develop the people around you to do a better job, therefore impacting the bottom line.
They're more focused.
They're more focused. They sell more. They create a better product. They serve better at a higher level of hospitality. They create a better experience for their guests, and
the guests want to come back.
Yeah, the guests want to come back. They want to spend more money, and the business makes more money that way. I mean, that's how the business operates, right? That's how the business works. Most restaurants don't succeed if they don't have some sort of volume that takes them to a level of solid profitability. So.
Right. That's one of our goals at the Hispanic Restaurant Association. Just provide that path of leadership, that path of progression.
Yeah.
So somebody starts at a dishwasher, that's part of the Food and Beverage Language Institute.
Yeah.
All the things we're doing to shape the culture. Obviously, changing is kind of a strong word.
Yeah.
We want to shape.
Yeah, shape.
And that's the best descriptor I have.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to change. It just needs to be reshaped. I think that's right. I mean,
so yeah, exactly. So let's drop back. How did you were the vice president of restaurant and bars at the Kimpton Hotel Group? Am I saying that?
Kimpton Hotels and Restaurants. Yeah.
Kimpton Hotels and Restaurants.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you progressed their leadership and how you became a vice president. And we talk a lot about culture.
Yeah.
And leadership. You and I offline and things like
a
that.
lot.
So let's talk about how that shaped you and why you think it's that shaping of your mind and seeing what works.
Culture was a really important part of Kimpton's ethos to begin with. It was also something that I had searched for in my career from the very beginning of my career when I worked with Let Us Entertain You. Culture was a big part of their community and their business as well. And when I left Let Us Entertain You and moved to Colorado, I think I had been searching for that same sort of environment and that culture until I found Kimpton and found a group that placed culture and leadership at the forefront of everything that they did, and they built everything around it. So I spent 13, 14 years with Kimpton, not just learning that culture and being a champion of it, but also helping them build it and helping them evolve it, and realizing the benefits of having great culture. And in my success and my growth to eventually vice president of restaurants and bars came from people following me and following my model and following my lead, and I think putting me in a position of leadership to help lead them and grow them, because I found there was just this an intense group of people around me that wanted to follow and listen to what I was saying. And sometimes I laughed, saying, "Who wants to listen to what I have to say?"
You look over your shoulder, like, look
Are
at
they
me?
talking about me?
I do that often.
Yeah. But it worked. Whatever I was saying, it was working. So.
Well, let's go back, and you mentioned it, and I forgot because of the catchy name.
Yeah.
Let Us Entertain You.
Yes.
Was that your start?
That was my start in Well, yeah, for all intents and purposes, was my start in a management role or a leadership role. Was with Let Us Entertain You. You could call it a leadership role at my job that I had during college at Michigan State, but it was a college job at the end of the day. So Let Us Entertain You was definitely my first, sous chef, manager, leadership role in a restaurant.
So what was your very first job in the industry besides mom making you do the dishes?
Dishwasher, prep.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
So you really did.
Start. Yeah, oh yeah.
You really did start.
I actually like dishwashing, and I found myself doing it as a manager late in my career.
Why is that?
I still do. I don't know. There's something about my personality style. I'm a bit of an extrovert and an introvert. There's times when I need to be by myself
And
to
disconnect and think.
disconnect, and I think you can do that when you're washing dishes. I always found, you could sort of shut things off and just focus on. And I don't know, I like the idea of sort of resetting the table for everything and cleaning things up and starting over again. So,
Wow.
it's a hard job.
Oh yeah,
One,
it is.
one of the hardest jobs for sure.
You have to move quickly, think about and
arguably one of the
efficiency
most
of movement.
important. Yeah.
All those different things. Yeah. So I have a couple pictures of me doing dishes during an event. I'm like, don't. It's kind of funny.
I haven't seen those shared.
haven't yet. But no, it's I totally agree. And the kitchen environment is such a team environment.
Yeah.
I mean, there's our 5 pillars. We talk about the cultural ethos. We talk about leadership, education, team building or teamwork, and then relationship building.
Yeah.
So you started out as a dishwasher.
Yeah.
Then let's talk about that progression and what made you kind of each step along the way.
I definitely spent some time in the kitchen, and I spent some time learning the culinary side of the business. I almost went to culinary school as opposed to going to Michigan State for hospitality management and a more broad scope of education in the hospitality industry. But there was something about it, and I think it was a chef that I worked for that was a little bit older, and it was starting to impact him physically. And there was something about seeing him get to an age where the physical components of being in the kitchen all the time were impacting him, and I wanted to learn more about the overall business as opposed to just staying focused in the kitchen. So I wanted to do a little bit of both, and it was one of the things I was attracted to Michigan State was their culinary program and the back of the house education, and as well as the business and the hospitality side. And so I got into the front of the house side doing serving and bartending and I was a busser, but, and then got into, I think, supervising and hosting. I mean, I've done every position in a restaurant that you can think of. I worked in a hotel when I was younger too. I did an internship at a hotel, housekeeping.
Oh, really?
Which was, talk about hard job.
you have a fine appreciation for every aspect, how hard people work.
Yeah.
Oh, that gives me a little better insight because you help us so much in developing our stuff. You're a huge fan of what we do and cheering us on. You really do understand each process along the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It takes a team.
Oh, it does.
Takes a
Absolutely.
village,
Yeah. There's so is there anybody in this path, whether at Let Us Entertainment, MSU, or Kempton, that inspired you? So a particular leader, person?
Yeah, there's probably quite a few along the way. I guess I'll just note one because his name always comes to the top of mind when I have this conversation, and his name is Noel Cunningham. Noel Cunningham was the founder and owner of Strings Restaurant here in Denver. If you remember when that was around for about 26 years. Noel's no longer with us. He was an incredible mentor to me and a lot of other people in the industry. A lot of people went through his establishment, and it was their path. It was sort of a passage in the industry in Denver, if you were in the restaurant
So
industry.
what set him apart? If he had that big of an impact, what set him apart as a mentor, leader?
His heart and how much he cared about people.
Oh,
And
really?
he put that first. You didn't always see it in the way that he worked, maybe because of the background and where he came from on the culinary side of things in the kitchen. But he had the biggest heart of anybody I've ever worked with in a restaurant or in the industry, in the kitchen. He cared about people so much, almost too much, almost to his detriment sometimes. But he put people first in his relationships with them before anything else.
But you said something about it didn't always show. What did you mean there?
I mean, he had also had a very high level of expectation, and he wanted people
pursuit
to
of
perform at a
excellence.
high level. Yeah, and I think one of the things that I've learned in my career, and I feel like that was a point in my career where I started to figure out and learn how to do both, was you can do both. I don't know that he did both very well, but I saw that he had a big heart and he cared about people, in a very significant way. And then when he needed people to rise to another level of performance or excellence, you could see a different side of him that didn't always feel like it was coming from here. I think from there forward, I decided I need to be able to show people that we can do both. We can push people to a very high level of expectation and performance, and do it with heart and care about them at the same time.
How do
It's
you
not
do
easy
that?
to do. I can't give you my secret.
The secret sauce.
Yeah, it is a secret sauce.
Okay, that's fine.
I think it's a balance. I think it's a balance. All those things: culture, leadership, team, relationships. If you don't do all of those things all the time, if it's at a full circle, if you don't constantly work that circle, I guess that's one way to describe it.
That's called life, exactly.
Yeah, then you're not gonna be able to do that. You can't just push for high expectation and high level of excellence and forget that you also have a relationship.
They're
and we
human
also
beings.
have a
They get
team,
tired, worn
and they're
down.
humans, yeah. And
there's things going on in their
constantly-
lives that we have no idea about till either a breaking point, or if we're smart enough.
It's different for every person too, and I think that's part of it too. So I don't think it's that easy. I think it's pretty complex actually, and I think it's the part about our industry that a lot of people don't realize is as challenging as it is. It seems like a simple thing, right? You cook the food, you make the drink, you give it to the guest, and they pay, and it's that easy, right? It's not that easy.
It's simplicity, the other side of complexity, is what I say. That's not my quote. I read it somewhere, and I just remembered it. I remember it from grad school.
And it's not just you, right? I mean, it's easy if you have control over it and if it's just yourself. I used to always joke to my team, if I worked in a restaurant that had 10 seats or 15 seats, and I was the bartender, but the bar was so close to the door, I was also the host and the manager, and I had a little range top, and I was also the cook.
That's called being dad and mom.
Yeah, it'd be super easy if it was all me. I didn't have to manage anybody, and I could make mistakes, and they were always my mistakes, but you would never make any money.
Right. Yeah,
It wouldn't work. That doesn't exist for a reason.
And then you're 24/7.
Right. It's a team.
Exactly. Huh. Well, that's pretty cool. But you're right. It is a very complex yet simple concept.
Yeah.
That's
it's dynamic.
Yeah, very dynamic. So he set it apart. So let's talk about how you would solve. Let's talk about today's problems.
Yeah.
You think culture and leadership can solve a lot of these problems?
I believe so. I believe just in talking to people that have worked in the industry for years and left and come back, or left and are thinking about coming back or don't want to come back, and asking them, what scared you away, or what made you. I mean, obviously the pandemic changed a lot for a lot of people, and it wasn't their choice. But when they were able to explore other things in their career and their life, I think they realized one of the things that was most challenging about being in this industry, and it was the environment. And it was the way they were treated, and it was the way they were compensated, and it was the ability to grow or lack thereof, and not knowing how to get there. So I think
you can really, just like teachers in a school have such an impact with the right words and the right encouragement. Same thing in the restaurant industry, because particularly in the Hispanic community, the restaurant industry is a gateway to either life, or you go and stay in that world, or it's a platform to go wherever you want to do.
Yeah.
And once again, we want to do this path of progression, provide all these educational tools, the Food and Beverage Language Institute, as well as, let's just get you to where you're proficient and at least starting to learn, and then get you on the college platform.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to go to college, then go into the trades. If you want to continue your path in the food and beverage industry, We love that because
Right.
good leadership, like you said, good culture is needed.
It's important in life. It's important in any business.
I know it's
in any
everywhere.
Industry.
Yeah, with this
Yeah.
leadership model we developed, and obviously you played a big part in that. Is just it can be applied anywhere.
Yeah.
We did it last week at our Feeding the Future with Thornton Middle School.
Yeah.
And the kids loved it. And we talk about each where they can go because they have this via their phone this platform to learn just about anything in the world.
Yeah.
It's just where do they apply it? I mean, I always talk about the Khan Academy, which they have in Spanish and English, and always improving yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lifelong endeavor, no matter what. Were there any particular books that you've read throughout your life that has kind of like helped form your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, this is probably one of the more common ones for those of us in this industry, but I would probably first go to Setting the Table by Danny Meyer. I mean, an unbelievable book. Other than that, Lessons in Excellence by Charlie Trotter.
I haven't.
You would like that book. I think.
Lessons in Excellence.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll write that down.
That's a really good one too. But I think Setting the Table was I think the one I think to go back to and think about a lot because of its attention to leadership and people first and how you treat people and how you talk to them, and yeah, it's just
right. And that's one of the things. That's the book that Professor Parsa from University
it
of
sounds
Denver.
like he gives it to a lot of his students or a lot of, and we used to keep a box of them in the office, and we would give them to every new employee.
What makes that book so good? I haven't listened to it yet.
You should listen to it or read it. Either.
Actually, I have the
now
book.
We just
he gave us the book. I'll
you
read
should
it.
Read it. Yeah. I think just like I said, I think the attention to people first. This is a business that's run or successful or not successful by the idea that the team either performs or doesn't perform at the level that we need them to. So I think and they put his group Union Square Hospitality and Danny put people in the front of everything that they do. So a lot of people say, what are the components or who are the assets or the stakeholders of a restaurant business or a hospitality business? And it's the employees, it's the guests. Typically you hear three, and it's the owners or investors, however you want to think of that third one. I think there's a fourth one actually these days that we don't consider often enough, and that's the community. But anyway, they think of those three, and it's always a question of which do you put first? And you hear guest first a lot. He trumps the guest with the employee. Because if the employee isn't happy and performing at the level that he needs them to, then you're never going to get the guest what they need and what they expect and what they want. So the employee comes first.
So the customer isn't always right.
Well, they're still right.
I'm just,
yeah.
No. Okay. I'm gonna. I definitely. That'll be. I have seem like 12 dozen I have to get to, and I listen almost every day to different books or read them and things like that. So
and there's also a lot about attention to detail, which I think is important too.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah.
Exactly. Let's talk about this Lessons in Excellence. What's that one? I have not one.
It's been a while since I've picked it up, but I think it just if you ever Charlie Trotter, have you ever been to? I don't know if you've been to Trotter's in Chicago or
I have
any
not.
of their restaurants. It's how do you get a level of excellence or attention to detail that's at the highest possible level? How do you drive that from and it talks about just repetition, focus on the employee, focus on education, focus on the why, which I thought was important.
That's a great book too, by the way.
Yeah.
Start with Why by
that's
Simon
well,
Sinek.
and I mean, I could talk about that piece of leadership all day long. Is if you don't, and I was just talking to one of my kids about it recently. Is if you don't explain why, then why did you bother in the first place?
I never thought of that's a good one. I like that. Yeah.
If you're telling somebody to do something, or you're asking somebody to do something, or you're teaching something to somebody, and you don't explain why, you might as well have not bothered teaching or explaining or asking them to do it in the first place.
No, that's a good point. I use that a lot with my son growing up when I talk to him, like when he's going to school. This is why these rules are for you. These guardrails. This is why school is important.
Yeah.
This is why you need to push yourself. That's a great point. But
I would challenge my team to say, if I don't tell you why, you better ask. Don't ever do anything because I just told you to do it. That's not the why. Because I said so.
So how would what mechanism can we use at the HRA or here to keep telling that story? pushing our leadership model, or what would you recommend?
I think pushing the leadership model, and I think just getting in front of as many industry leaders and kids like we are now, and people who want to be in the industry, and just continuing to push the importance of culture and leadership and relationship building in that model, so that everyone understands, especially the younger generation and those who want to grow and succeed in this industry. They understand how critical and how important that is to not just the success of the business, but their growth
In their life.
and their life. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, and my kids probably, every once in a while I think get, here he goes on one of his stories again, or his tangents, because it comes back to my industry, and I'll bring like leadership or culture into the conversation, and they're like, but it's true, right? I mean, everything I do in business and in this industry, when it comes to leadership and culture, is also, and communication and relationship building, is also one of the most important things you can learn and need to take with you in life.
No matter what, no matter
Personally.
what industry.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah, but that's our goal. Well, that's why Chef Pablo started. He's like, we need to reach out to the schools.
Yeah.
And so obviously Celine had this great connection. Thornton Middle School. I mean, they were all over it. And we had like roughly 80, 90 kids there last week. It was beautiful. I mean, from the
It's incredible to see kids at that generation, or that kids at that age and those generations be interested.
I know. I was
in our industry.
But to give credit to the staff, they had some great, inspiring stories. I'm like, you can do this, and I mean, Alan, who helps produce this, he was like, you have the power in your hands, the cell phone, to learn. It's just, what do you use it for?
Yeah.
It's like, and it was fantastic. Mario, Pablo, we had pilots, Celine's husband there, Celine giving her story. All these different industry people talking about that pursuit of excellence, talking about, all those things, the 5 pillars we're talking about. It is. We wanted to reach back and talk to them like, yes, you can do it.
Right.
Life is hard.
Right.
But it's better when it's less hard when you're trained and have a goal to shoot for.
And you have a foundation. Yeah.
Exactly. What other things would you see that a restaurant or industry group could do to help in today's environment?
So we talked about the culture and the leadership creating opportunity. I just think the work environment and creating a better work environment. I mean, historically, our industry has a reputation for not having the best work environment. Can be tough to work in, depending on the kind of leader that you work for. And I think you talked about reshaping, and I think that's right. I think that's the right way to say it, is how do we reshape the reputation that the restaurant industry has for being a great place to work and for being a good environment to work in. Because again, and I think listening to your employees and asking them what that looks like to them and what's important to them is where to start internally, as opposed to asking people externally what would get you to come work in this industry. Is talk to the people that are in it now. Talk to the people that have stuck with it through this difficult time, and ask them, what are you looking for to stay in this industry, and what would change that for you? And a lot of them will tell you it's the environment. A lot of them are going to talk about pay and compensation, but a lot of them are going to talk about work environment, and does it have to be an 80-hour work week if I'm a manager or a chef, and does it have to be so physically demanding, and is there a way to break that up, or is there a way to make it a little bit easier, or at least manage that a little bit better and create an environment where it's actually fun and not so grueling all the time, because it's known for that.
Are there any tools out there, productivity tools or technologies people can use that you would recommend?
I mean, the technology is a huge part of the industry. There's a ton of productivity tools. I don't know if I'm struggling to think of one off the top of my head that I love, but I would say the one thing about technology in general that I think is important about how it impacts the industry is there's been a lot of fear over the last 5+10 years about how it could take over the human element of hospitality. I don't think it takes it over. I think it enhances it.
Right.
A lot of people think it's going to replace it. I think it enhances it.
I think you're exactly right. But so you just use, instead of wasting all your time, now you have a technology tool to run this, and you could focus on the service or the hospitality side.
There's pieces of the business that are transactional, right?
Right.
The order taking, the paying, and that kind of stuff is all very transactional. So let the technology take care of the transactional piece, and let the people take care of the
people piece.
The people piece and the hospitality piece and the service piece. So I think that's important. But yeah, there's a lot of great I mean, Spot On is who you're familiar with, is
Right.
probably one of my favorite technology partners that I think is really just doing a good job servicing the customer. And to them, their customer isn't the guest at the restaurant; their customer is the restaurant, and they really have a good perspective on that.
Okay, so yeah, we recently did a review of theirs, and
Yeah.
it really was spot on, huh?
Yeah.
Pun intended. If you're listening to that,
Yeah.
that'll be.
Exactly.
No, exactly right. We have a great relationship with them, and yeah, I'm very excited about. What other technology tools would you recommend? Or do you see? I know I'm putting you on the spot on this one. This was not a planned conversation.
That's one of the big ones. I think any of the technology that helps with analytics on the back side of the business. So whether it's analyzing the labor management, or helping with labor management, or helping with inventory and menu costing. Craftable is a good group that has an inventory management. Craftable is the parent company, and Bevager and Foodiger are the programs for procurement, purchasing, inventory management, menu engineering, analytics, helping the business understand what sells and what doesn't, what should change, what's making you money, what's selling but not making you money, etc. It's a bit of menu engineering.
Well, it's definitely this. One of the things we're doing at the Colorado Food Magazine is we're showing the complexity of the food ecosystem and the technology piece. Alan and I were just out at the Harvey Colgazer's farm last Friday. We're going to do a documentary about the Bean Summit and stuff like that. And one of our goals is to show every component, from the planting, which we showed, then we went to where the beans were being cleaned, and then the distribution, and then eventually with the Bean Summit, we're going to show everything all the way to the end consumer. So that's our goal, make it the Colorado Food Magazine all things Colorado.
That's great.
I know we're really happy with that. What other tools? We're going to wrap this up. What other thing? What do you have for the HRA? What we're doing? You were a huge believer. I remember meeting you at the Top Chef.
Yeah.
And what do you?
I think the education piece and getting out there and talking to people and educating them, like you're doing, like the HRA is doing, like we're doing, is important. I think just continuing to do that and getting out in front of people and letting them see a different side or a different viewpoint of what's important in the industry and what's exciting about it. I think just continuing to do that is a big piece of it. I think the education piece is really important, and this place obviously does great with that. And I think the next generation is important for me, because some days I think about what's the future of our industry look like, especially with what we're going through right now. And that's not dependent on me. That's dependent on the kids.
These young kids.
Yeah.
We that's part of that going to the middle schools.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a great career if you want to do that, because you can affect a lot of people.
Yeah, and I guess also I just continuing to, well, this is education, but continuing to remind people that there's more to it than just a job, right? We've talked about that before, and I think the HRA does a good job with that. There could be a career, and it could be a lifestyle, and it could be a career, and we need to create more opportunities for people that don't have them to turn it into a career instead of considering it as a job.
And that's exactly right. I mean,
two different levels of performance when you have somebody that looks at it as a job and somebody who looks at it as a career.
Right, and that path of progression, going all the way from a dishwasher all the way to vice president or owning your own restaurant. And that's one of the goals. I mean, as I often tell people, I can be delusional with the best of them. But one of our goals in our organization, and you were there at one of the founders' meeting, Hispanic Culinary Institute.
Yeah.
That's going to be huge once we get to that point. That's going to be we'll have to raise a lot of money, but we have a plan and we have a path.
We're going to get there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's going to be magnificent, and I just can't wait to where you can change people's lives. Not only are we talking about how to be a chef, or a cook, or different levels of that, but
how to be a great leader.
How to be a great leader. That's going to be one of the most important components of, because you can accomplish so much more.
Yeah.
With that,
we can teach people the technical skills, but it takes a little bit more to teach leadership and drive culture and drive relationship building.
Right. And if I don't think I'm incorrect, but anecdotally, the Hispanic Latin community makes up between 40 and 65% of the restaurant industry.
I guess sometimes I feel like it's more.
It probably is. Depends on what model you look at.
Yeah.
But if we can start shaping the leadership there and give them, inspire them, give them hope, even if they don't know English at the start, we'll teach them that. And
Yeah.
by the time they leave the school,
Yeah.
they'll be a leader, they'll have bilingual, and it'll be a great path for them.
They drive our industry now. They'll continue to drive it even
I just want to
further
put them in the
future.
leadership roles where they're predominantly already consist of majority. Let's put them in the leadership roles and develop that process. It's a
Couldn't agree
generational
more.
fight, but we're up for the challenge.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, thank you. Appreciate you coming on. Do
it
we
was
have
great.
anything else?
I don't think so. This has been great.
Well, thank you for coming on. As always, if people wanted to know more about your background or your company,
Yeah. Spark3hospitality.com. It's our group. Spark3 the number hospitality.com. The three is the three partners that are in our group, but it's more importantly speaks to the three pillars within our culture that we felt was most important, and that is people, passion, vision, or people, vision, passion.
and that's what you want to convey to people.
Yeah, yeah. Is
So-
that it starts with the people, and it starts with a vision, and it starts with having a passion. And it's one of the things that we're doing as a group is we're trying to help people in the industry, or companies in the industry, or restaurants in the industry refocus on that passion that they have for what we do in the restaurant and bar
So
industry.
it'd be at
and focus.
www.spark3 the number 3 hospitality.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, I highly recommend the group. Josh has been a huge proponent of what we do, and also a component of adding all this intellectual knowledge and prestige to what we do.
Yeah, it's been fun. I can't wait to see what we do next.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.